Okay, good morning, but good afternoon, Frantz Dhers, because we are placed in different points of the globe. Thank you very much for for accepting our invitation to talk about broader view when talking to culture. I would like to invite you to make a very short introduction about culture and sustainability, and we were talking before about your professional interest in this area, and maybe then we will address a particular article that you wrote that is of course is based on your professional expertise until now. Please, you have the floor.
Hello, Oana. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone of your network. Very happy to be here. My name is Frantz. I am from France. This is easy to remember. I live in Greece, but right now I am in Tokyo, in Japan, for some work related to what we are going to talk about. I will say I am one of the pioneers of the link between culture and sustainability. 10 years ago, already, I decided to let's say connect sustainability, sustainable development, and culture because I noticed, as we discussed before, that I don't want our children to have the choice of having a culture, being proud of their identity, but in the hatred of the others, or not having an identity anymore. So I said, okay, how we can link both? I understood that the narratives of sustainable development were powerful. I understood that culture was really lacking in the, let's say, discussions. And I decided not exactly to invent, but at least we were few talking about cultural sustainability at this moment. Concretely, I help companies to engage for sustainability by adapting their strategies to the local cultures of the countries or the regions that they implement their strategies. I also help, let's say, local governments to engage for the resilience and let's say sustainability of their local cultures.
Can I a bit just pinpoint this, because you mentioned that you began your work quite long time ago. For example, 10-15 years ago, there are much of a buzz of corporate social responsibility, CSR, which meant that you as a company are you are very interested in involving the society, but well, with specific points. But unfortunately, in my opinion, this was transformed into PR and sponsorship. So actually, they miss the idea that they have to be involved in the society on a long term. So what you are saying, that you are working on this, I mean, actually this would be the answer, not the CSR, but the involvement in the sustainability of that company as well.
Exactly. It was very difficult to start because the companies, or they were not at all interested by local cultures, because we were far from where we are today, and still today it's not that developed, or they had, I would say, the American way of tackling culture, very individually based and not very community based. Cultural diversity was meaning different people with different colors in the teams of HR. I was not doing this at all. It was about community, place, and belonging to the place. So I was struggling the first years. I'm still struggling sometimes with some companies who don't have the same vision. Since I do promote a more holistic approach of sustainability, environmental, but also social, cultural, showing that everything is interlinked. What is good now is that the world is getting more and more decentralized. The context is more decentralized. The sustainability is promoting more diverse paths towards the future, and not only one unique global path for everyone. And that's why also I wrote this article, because of the context. We have the last COP with the launch of the culture-based climate action by Brazil and UAE. We also have Culture 2030 campaign in Europe. We have some organization promoting SDG number 18 for culture. All of this is interesting. And that's why, let's say, I am following this stream, maybe from my own perspective, which is more based on what we call the local culture, the values, the lifestyles, the ways of thinking, which are, let's say, specific to a local place and to a local community, whatever, if this community is a village, a region, a country, or whatever. But this is mainly my approach. I'm not really talking about cultural sector because, in my opinion, it restrains the scope of culture, while culture is everywhere, as we will see. That's why I can say, sorry, as an introduction. Thank you.
No, actually, you pinpoint something very interesting because, of course, you cannot have one tool for every cultural place in the world, and of course, we welcome all these initiatives that are more regional, so to speak, depending on the structure they are based on. And I wanted to ask you. You put the plural cultures for sustainability,
Yeah.
so, but you approach this idea as well. And maybe for our listeners would be interesting to know your definition about culture. You know, when you do a strategy, when you do a policy, you begin with a definition. What is culture, and so on and so forth. So what you mentioned about what is a sector and what is culture, cultures, what are cultures, I think is a very important a very important point in the discussion. Okay, what do you mean by culture? What do I mean by culture? So that you are on the same page.
Thank you.
Okay, we go to your study. Actually, you said something very interesting, and you propose a concept: European green, culture ecosystem services. We will approach European Green Deal initiative as well a bit. But what do you mean about, okay, culture ecosystem? We heard that before, but what do you mean by services? I mean, how do you see this process, or is it a process?
Yeah, okay. If you want, we can start with this question. Let's say, look, what is important in this concept? It's because of my, I would say, how can I say, my experience with the companies, because it comes from the idea, and it is inspired by the ecosystem services. You know what is happening today with companies. The companies today, and after I will be more critical, but I give you an example. They don't want to engage for ecosystem because it's nice and diversity and biodiversity is nice. They are engaging for the ecosystem and for some species because they assessed and they analyze that those species give back a lot for the whole ecosystem. And so they value, in a way, the role, for example, of the bees, while they don't value the role of the wasps in the ecosystem. This is a very specific mindset. But still, I was thinking that culture and local culture is very valuable, not only from a social and cultural aspect, but maybe also from a financial aspect for the people living there. I don't know if you know that, but this year, I think Heritage Association in England, a serious one, I forgot exactly the name, but I can mention it later, assessed and analyzed that the fact for a human being to live close to a cultural heritage site is valued per year $800 for this individual. It's not $800 in the pocket of this person, but everything as the ecosystem and the interrelationship between the person and this cultural heritage site and the environment and the well-being of these persons, etc., could be valued. So the idea is to say culture, if we want companies, if we want governments to engage for it, we need to be able to, how can I say, to measure the positive impact of culture on people in order to engage more people on that. Then the idea is to quantify, I would say, the social benefits of living into culturally resilient, culturally healthy environments. You see what? That's the idea. Now, we need to be careful of that because culture is not and will never be, I hope, an economic asset. That's very important to think. And this is what is happening with biodiversity. Companies engage for some species, do not engage for other species. And this is very bad because why the wasps are not, supported while the bees are the good ones and the wasps the bad ones? If we think only this way, we might have the good cultures that are providing something and the bad cultures that are not providing something to the human beings, So we have for sure to be very careful from the very start. Still, if we are ethical and responsible in the process, I believe that cultural ecosystem service can help cultural actors, local communities engage companies and finances for the preservation and the sustainability of their culture, saying to them, when you engage for us, you do not only engage for the local culture, you engage for more financial assets of the region.
Before I ask you the question about local cultures in sustainable development, I would like to pinpoint and follow up your idea about measuring. This was always a problem in the cultural field, beginning with cultural project evaluation and ending with a potential sponsorship from a company. If you cannot measure the impact, then okay, we will not be part of your initiatives. But I think it's very important, these famous KPIs, what is it qualitative, is it quantitative approach? So I think this would be, we can approach everything. You can measure everything, including, for example, as you mentioned, the well-being of people living in a heritage area. So actually, you can do that like an overview. Apropos the plural of cultures, local cultures in sustainable development, how would you see? It's a very complex, in my opinion, it's a very complex approach from the local specifics and the global issues or problems, so to pinpoint. So how would you do that? Would you apply the same, for example, measuring instruments or intervention instruments in a local culture and not in the other one? Or how would you deal with this glocal, because it's very famous, the term, in what concerns the local culture?
Look, that's a good question. What I see from my side, because in fact, my expertise is almost more linked with sustainability than with local culture. At least it's 50-50. And what I see is that sustainability until now is ruled by engineers, quantifying everything. How many tons of CO2 emissions are we saving every year? They are thinking of the global aspect of saving the planet, but in the same time, they are losing their local connection with nature. And this is crazy. That's why I tell them, you need to get the connection with nature locally. And most of the time is done, this connection, through the local cultures. So yes, it is a challenge, but between you and me, I believe that the ones who are the most maybe sad that we cannot measure culture are people working in the cultural sector. I am also sad sometimes, but in fact, I think we should not be, because the day that culture will be measurable will not be a good day, I think, for the future of the humanity. If we start measuring what is identity, what is connection to your land, to your place, what is the way to imagine the future, wow, maybe the last thing that we can have that we can not really explain to feel part of a community connected to nature, if we start measuring that, we are done. At least this is what I am thinking.
Yeah, I often think of this measuring that is a trap, but it's a trap that we voluntarily got into because we need financing, and then you have to adapt a thing that is very creative and complex to a certain framework, which is the financial framework. So unfortunately, maybe you have to do this juggling all the time to try to measure something, and then something in the artistic and cultural area, but to be also free. You are free in a framework, which is a bit strange. Yeah.
It's very important to be free. I will give you an example. I can speak freely. I'm fine. 4 years ago, just before COVID, I was invited by IKEA, the big Swedish company, in a private gathering in which they said that they were inviting as a top 100 activists for diversity worldwide. So they were considering me as such. Anyway, it started well. But when I arrived there, I felt so much, I felt bad, let's say, because everyone was talking about diversity, but everyone was thinking the same, dressing the same, eating the same. For example, everyone was vegan, everyone was thinking the same, everyone was having the same objective, everyone was voting the same, etc. So everyone was the same, living in their bubble, congratulating each other for what they have done, while we were talking about diversity. And so I could not stay. I had almost an allergy, without joke. Not because it's a bad company, but because I saw, okay, those companies and this kind also of world from the finance world are that much in their bubble that they cannot understand the outside world. For example, countryside for them is nothing. They have nothing relatable to that, and so I left. I left it because I cannot help this kind of companies, and you were talking about juggling. Sometimes we juggle, sometimes we leave, and we remain free, I believe, because yes, we have to be careful of how we handle the future of the culture.
Yeah, for the next discussion, we will approach the what is freedom, and then we'll stay for hours discussing about it. And I would like to also approach because you talk about the transformative power of culture, which sounds great. And when someone hears this, it can think of anything. But maybe you would pinpoint what would you mean by that, and why not with a specific idea of what we discussed before about local culture. I mean, how can it be a transformative power within a local perspective?
Okay, I don't want to be a bit boring on that with historical views, but let's say I think that culture and other cultures, let's say cultures with the plural, it opens by definition yourself, because by being in touch with other way of thinking, you start also thinking about your own self as a community. And I think that it's not by chance that Europe, in the European countries, started like in France, their revolution some centuries after discovering other continents and so other ways of thinking. The people started to be aware of their own, let's say, situation, because they met diversity of culture and things. And then on your second question, what it was exactly? Can you repeat it?
Yeah, the idea of how can you use culture as a power, a transformative power, as you mentioned, like addressing climate change or addressing
Okay.
global issues, but from a local perspective, using what we say culture has a power. What is its power? I mean, so what
Yeah.
are the characteristics?
Okay. On transformative and power. Look, first of all, I think that culture has a central role in sustainable development. Sometimes when we meet people from the cultural sector or from the sustainable development sector, they think that culture is just about some artists that can find innovative activities to help and to facilitate a green transition. No, it's much more than that. Culture is not a tool, you know. First of all, culture and nature are strongly interdependent, you know. I mean, the way of eating, what we eat, what we grow, the architecture, but even the way of thinking, etc., they all come from the, let's say, natural environment around us, you know. And so any change in nature environment leads to a change in the cultural environment. And who says change, transformation, says today climate change. And climate change is not only an environmental crisis, it's not only that, it's also a cultural crisis. I have thousands of examples. The snow in the Pyrenees mountain, where I come from, you know, in France. My father, just by looking at the shape of the snow in the top of the mountain, can tell you if it's a good day to go fishing or not. I cannot say that. This is local wisdom. But this local wisdom is less and less relevant. Why? Because there is no snow anymore in the Pyrenees. So all the culture is dying because the nature, or at least the landscape, is also changing. I also have another example in which, for example, in the Pacific Islands, a lot of young people, because of climate change, they need to leave their place. But by leaving the place, they also leave the attachment and the relevancy of their local culture. To summarize, there is no point to know how to fish coconut crabs if you are now living in Wisconsin, in the US. And so all of this knowledge is also getting lost because of climate change. This is the second, let's say, connection between local culture and nature. Then I continue on that point. On the transformative aspect, the process of change, of transformation, is deeply cultural. Because today, when we say that we have to tackle climate change, in fact, we need to change lifestyles and values. Lifestyles, values, culture. So it's a cultural change as well. That's why sometimes we have some difficulties, because culture is embedded into us. It's not something that you can choose from a day to another. And finally, on these points above that, maybe more disruptive point, but we will see, the way we consider sustainable development or climate action today is very, very culturally biased, culturally influenced by values. For example, there is the Greta way, Greta Thunberg, you know, the Greta way is a very westernized way. It is saying in 10 years, we can save the planet if we act now, okay? It's a very, a way which is very American style way, you know, like Armageddon style. While if you ask the same question for indigenous communities in the Amazon, they will not say we can save the planet. They will say we are the planet. We are not above it to save it. And this is very cultural, you know. To summarize, a US activist or a Romanian rural community guy don't have the same mindset on nature and culture. And this is very important, I think, today, to make people understand that sustainable development needs to be sustainable developments with a plural.
Very good point, because we kept on discussing about the global perspective, and then the regional perspective, and then the local one. And a final question would be regarding the European Green Deal initiatives. Anyway, we discussed before about the culture as a fourth pillar of sustainable development, which which was written in 2010 at a summit of United Cities and Local Government. And now, of course, there are different initiatives. So how, again, how would you take a regional, European or global initiatives and try to maybe not to apply it, but to adapt it to the local cultures that we discussed?
That's a good question to end, because it can lead to a call to action. I'm happy from your network to have ideas what we can implement with whom. So first of all, we just saw that climate change leads to cultural change, but also on this point, the ways and the policies, to tackle climate change also leads today to cultural changes. I mean here that many initiatives are not adapted to the local context, or they even disrupt the local cultural environments. For example, we have the new trend in climate change is to plant trees, reforestation, in order to compensate the carbon emissions. Sweden, Norway, they are very good at this. That's why they are seen as very green countries, just because they plant billions of trees worldwide in order to compensate, okay? This looks good. The problem is that the trees they plant are monoculture, is the same kind of champion of CO2 capture everywhere, the unique kind of trees. And these trees are very bad for the local biodiversity and the local cultures, because they are not relevant for to the local community. Is it the kind of Green Deal that we want? Me, for sure, no. I also have other examples with the Sami and also some shepherds in Greece. There we have a lot of wind turbines, okay, implemented for to tackle climate change and for the European Green Deal. Same, it looks good. The problem is that those wind turbines, they disrupt the landscapes, and the local communities like the Sami in Finland or some local shepherds in Greece, they feel that by changing the landscape, they kill their own self, they kill their cultures, because everything they know is based on the landscape. If you change it, they are not existing anymore. And that's why a lot of companies do have issues with local communities. So what I mean here is that, as you said, to try to localize the European Green Deal, it's first of all something which is for me crucial for the local cultures, but it's also very important for the companies and the actors, because the examples I gave you are examples from my expertise. And I can tell you that some companies who are establishing wind turbines in the wrong place are losing a lot of money with the local community after. So it's very important prior to speak with the local communities, to ask them, okay, where do you want to place it? Because after you can have problems. But the problem is that prior, for companies, culture and cultural beliefs are nothing. They say, it's okay, it's not tangible. They are engineers. If it's not tangible, it's not a threat. It is a threat for the companies. They are losing money. So in fact, to localize is also for companies not to lose money. That's, I think, the idea, at least, that I try to present it to the companies, which is right, actually. I have a lot of cases on that.
It's good we speak the language that they understand. So, okay, you talk money, I talk money. You talk culture, I talk culture. So actually, it's a good way to tackle as many visions of as many stakeholders as we can, so that we can have a progress, so to speak. Frantz, thank you very much, and thank you very much for your time. And for your input. We stay in touch, and if our listeners would have questions, they can address them in the chat, and then I will reach out to you. Thank you in advance with further details. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hope to see you.
Thank you very much. And anyone who has, like me, I hope, and I guess, a disruptive approach of culture or sustainability, please join, because sometimes we feel very alone. So happy to talk anytime to implement concrete and tangible projects. And thank you very much for your interesting questions. Thank you very much.